Well, look, just before we go, the collapse of several banks, I talked about this with Peggy before, in the United States over the last fortnight, should be a warning sign for the big four banks here. Now, think about it. Silicon Valley Bank, as I said, was woke. It prioritised climate change. It assumed that interest rates would remain low forever, which led them to take risks. And now they've gone under. The situation isn't that much different when it comes to the Commonwealth Bank, ANZ, Westpac and NAB from a different perspective, because our big four banks are safe, but dreadfully woke. And shareholders, where are you? And why don't you wake up? Our banks have turned their backs on Australia's most profitable industry, our resources sector. In fact, new data shows that the big four banks' exposure to the Australian resources industry has sunk to a decade low, while the profits of our resources sector reach record highs. But the big four banks have put all their eggs in the mortgage basket, which could be about to blow up. The numbers paint an unsavoury picture. During COVID pandemic, a record number of Australians were coaxed into taking on incredible amounts of debt at fixed, ultra-low rates, but only for a couple of years. Almost 600,000 fixed mortgages have been rolled off their low fixed rates last year. Another 880,000 are due to roll off their fixed rates this year, and 450,000 next year. This means there are still well over 1 million mortgage holders who'll see their monthly mortgage repayments increase by over $1,100. That's just assuming an average mortgage of about $600,000 and a cash rate of 3.6%. Now, the consequences of this will be profound. If people can't keep up with their skyrocketing mortgage repayments, they'll have to sell their house. And if these people sell their houses at the same time, housing prices collapse. The worst part, well, in the United States, if you sell your house to pay off your mortgage and you still owe money to the bank, you walk away without having to pay another cent. But in Australia, mortgage holders will have to pay off the outstanding debt on their mortgage even after selling their house and giving all the proceeds of the sale to the bank. The short point, Aussie mortgage holders get screwed by the banks if they're forced to sell their house to pay off their mortgage. And the banks walk away richer than ever. Now, one of the big four have gone so hard on the mortgage market over the last few decades. I looked at the figures today. In 1997, 51% of the Commonwealth Bank's loans were home loans, 51%. Fast forward to 2022, it's now 72%. In other words, the big four have deprived our miners, our power generators, our farmers, our builders, the productive parts of our economy. They've denied them cheap credit. 90% of our mining sector, the very industry which sustains our economy, 90% foreign-owned. Our woke banks don't want to fund the resource industry. But as I said earlier, where are the shareholders? They should be speaking out when the same resource industry is returning record profits, but the industry is foreign-owned because it can't raise money from our woke banks. Indeed, our banks have spent the last 25 years lending to people who want to buy a home, which has artificially pushed up the price of property, coaxed millions of people into incredible amounts of debt that they can only afford at low interest rates. Now, I'm not in favour of all this regulation, but as Paul Keating once said, if banks don't behave themselves and don't act in the national interest and refuse to fund the resource sector, that is overt behaviour which is not in the national interest, then the national government should step in.